Consumer duty is a prime example of how data strategy is increasingly at the heart of why, what, and how the firm operates, not just a core input for risk pricing. Decision makers in all functions, and especially at board, need more and better than the current set of metrics and measurement tools. These are the future metrics, and in 6 10-minute episodes, Insurance Data Lab brings you diverse, bite-sized views from experts inside and outside insurance and financial services. I'm Shan Millie, and I work at the intersection of data-enabled value generation, leadership, and trust. And these 3 competencies are business critical for growth in today's market. And I think consumer duty is the sternest test to date for the firm to work out, do you have what it takes or don't you? IDL in 10 Future Metrics aims to help you to take stock and to take action. And today, we're talking to Sunil Dial, who's the co-founder of CandidateX. And CandidateX is all about that fundamental linking attribute, Sunil, isn't it, between what happens to customer and the internal culture. So you're about to launch a brand spanking new platform in the UK and North America, supported by Innovate Finance. Tell us about that and how that culture is a really powerful future metric.
Yeah, it's the unmeasured one at the moment, right? So we're all customers, but a lot of us are also employees within the business. There's a huge link there. But what we found and why we're existing and why we're here today is that there's a lack of transparency or lack of really measurement about feelings within a business as an employee, but also how that translates to how customers now are also viewing companies and viewing businesses, right? So it comes down to being genuine and authentic and actually honoring commitments that you might make as a company and actually driving through and following through delivery of that. So we started, we're a business that was formed by 3 co-founders. We have immense amounts of recruitment experience as recruiters, but also as hiring managers. I myself within financial services. And it's a journey that actually started a long time ago through personal experiences, what we've seen and what we witnessed, but also a lot of sentiment that was fed back to us by a lot of candidates that we worked with, wanting to see more about a company, understanding more of a company before we apply. We don't get that. A lot of the sentiment was they felt it wasn't very personal in regards to how they applied for jobs with a business. How did someone like me, how does someone like me who identifies like me, work with a business like yours, for example, came back quite a lot. What does that look like? What provisions? So we looked at a traditional recruitment model. We looked at the application process and went, lots of the companies here now are saying they haven't got the data to show how they're hiring. They could show how they're hiring internally, but they can't show externally who's applying for their jobs. And that's always been the narrative. And so we looked and went, well, the issue that happens is actually right at the beginning, how you apply for a job. It's not very personal. You put a CV in and you wait for a response most of the time. Sometimes you don't get a response. And that actually leaves a mark on the applicant when they are actually, that experience actually is quite lasting on that brand. So what we did was we totally just unpicked the whole process, application process. Well, actually, what can we do at right up to actually make it a lot more enriched in regards to how you apply for a job? So that's seeing more about a company, understanding more about what they're doing specifically within DE&I. So that's not just talking about statements on a website or on social media. That goes beyond actually, let's have some contribution from people within the business about what they're doing. And
right, so that kind of internal validation or not about, well, they may say all the right things, but they're not actually doing it, right?
Yeah, and that's not just looking at one asset, one facet that, I might be an ethnic minority and I want to know. Actually, it goes beyond that, childcare provisions, individuals wanting to know, look, I've got children. If I left the office at certain times, what does that mean? Will I be reflected, frowned upon? Actually talking to real people within the business with that experience. And then the idea is for that information, for that knowledge of that business, we're asking individuals to share a lot more insight into how they identify up front. So, you know, you enter a lot more information about yourself, which we anonymize, and it's totally, that data belongs to you. But we're able to match the process through the application process. So when you finally do apply for a job, how does that process go? We're able to give a lot more back to companies to say, look, 100 people have applied for your jobs. This is how they might have identified. This is a sentiment actually of where they might have dropped off and why they might have dropped off through the process. So a lot more insight to companies to go, right, you know, you're losing a lot of women, for example, at a job description stage. Because your job description is very sort of masculine, very sort of, it's not very inclusive in its approach. So we're kind of reinventing that whole process of the application, kind of bringing a new standard, as we're saying, something that hasn't really been innovated for, I'd say, 20 odd years, really. We were seeing things now like we're using anonymization of CVs, etc., to ensure that applicants feel comfortable in applying for jobs and they don't feel like their name or identity is going to count against them. So we're kind of equalizing that whole sort of process flow straight away. But I think a lot more of it is just sharing of information and data right from the outset, just to try and drive some more intelligent data that can be used to really give access to everybody.
So if I'm a business and I work with CandidateX, I obviously need to pay you, but also to enable you to get access to the people, to forge that relationship. So Sunil, it's all very well having people's contact details, isn't it? And even the business saying, yeah, talk to these guys, they're trustworthy and it's going to help, whatever else the company might say. But actually, there's a real art and science, isn't there, to getting people to trust you, to engage with you. What's CandidateX's secret sauce, if you like, on that engagement aspect?
Very, very simple, just relationship based, really. What we found was that yes, we could do all the technology that makes people feel comfortable in how they apply for a job, and that might attract more candidates to apply. But when we went out to the communities and spoke to the communities, we found that a lot of groups discount themselves from certain industries and certain brands, and they don't feel comfortable because they don't believe that someone like them in a certain area, for example, could fit into the legal sector or financial services sector. But when we looked at the various groups within DE&I, they're doing some fantastic stuff, but they're all fragmented, doing in silos, doing different things. And we looked at that and went, right, actually, if we just approached and had relationships with these groups, right? Community groups, it could be all business groups apart from different communities, and actually form some relationships with them where we gave access to all these jobs that were coming into us and go, right, here, we're going to share all these jobs and give your communities access. And this is why we're different. So you could trust us from that perspective. It's a very simple sort of process, which actually really weird. It hasn't really been done. Everyone's just so focused on technology. But the simple part is just build relationships and share knowledge and give individuals access to jobs. And then if they feel comfortable when applying, you automatically will have a larger population seeing your company and applying for those jobs.
And then overlay that with some really state-of-the-art dashboards and metrics for the businesses themselves so they can learn from that, right?
That definitely. So the businesses could learn from that. They could see who's applying for their jobs. They could see what's not working within the process. So they can make a lot more strategic, conscious decisions to go, look, we're losing candidates from this sort of who identify this way at this stage. We need to be a lot more strategic now. It's not about just throwing money to go, right, we need to do a campaign on social media to attract these individuals. Actually, it's a lot more now. I'll call it ROI within the process, which has never really been seen before. But also we could twin that with publishing data externally to the population.
Yeah.
So this is a leap for companies. The next step is kind of, will you publish this data externally so everyone can see how you're hiring and what's going on, and they could see that you are being fair and equal within the process, and they could apply for jobs. And this drives to becoming a new standard.
Yeah, and proud enough to be transparent as well. Sunil, thank you so much for that. I know we could carry on for a lot longer, but that's all we have time for today. Matt, just bringing you back in. So some initial reactions to that, Matt, from what you've heard from Sunil.
Yeah, I think it's great what you're doing, Sunil, and I think the way you're bringing transparency to this area that, historically maybe has been a bit closed off, hasn't had that openness. I think that's fantastic and something that will make a real difference and can really drive change. And looking at it from the insurance industry perspective, I think kind of traditionally, insurance, and even still today, has a bit of a problem with DE&I. There are some great initiatives going on out there, some companies doing some great things, but there's also a lot of people just putting out the buzzwords and the statements that you were talking about. And something like this will be great to really kind of open that up and show who's actually making a real difference with the hiring and who is being fair, who is being open. And I think that could be a real driver behind the change that we all want and need to see in the industry. And with Insurance Data Lab, we're all about kind of bringing transparency from the other angle, financials and customer experience. And this is another way of doing a very similar thing, but from a different angle. And I think that's great.
Super. Thank you so much. Right. Okay. So with that, thank you so much, Sunil, for sharing about CandidateX today. Thank you, Matt. And thank you for tuning in, and see you on the next episode. Goodbye.